what I'm about to say made more sense before Oracle jumped like 30% 2 days ago. Um, I've been trying to avoid my screen time while being concussion recovery, but sometimes Bloomberg ruins my day. No, I think, but like what it really comes down to is sort of at this critical juncture where there were tons of Bitcoin miners in 2021. It was the sexiest thing. It was the hottest thing. It was the most controversial thing. And as a result, we ended up with 3 dozen pubcos in various capital markets around the world. I think what we're now sort of at after the HPC hype cycle that really started in like 2023 and kind of continued through last year, and even earlier this week, we're seeing all these HPC related miners, their stocks pumping because of HPC excitement. I think we're kind of at this point where miners have sort of been maybe moving in more into HPC. Some miners like CleanSpark have been saying, no, we're Bitcoin miners. This is what we do. And I think we're probably at the point where the rubber starts meeting the road, where some miners will just say, we're not doing any Bitcoin mining anymore, because what we really are, we're energy pirates. What we do is we find cheap energy and we monetize that energy using compute, whether that's us building data centers or us even owning the GPUs ourselves. And so if there's a better arbitrage in town, that's what we're going to do. And so I think the main thing probably that will change with Bitcoin mining is that I wonder if in 12 to 24 months, how many of the names that we see on MinerMag will just be completely, outside of Bitcoin mining at that point. Whether it's them sort of sunsetting the mining business and selling the ASICs, maybe there's some M&A there where people spin off assets to, like American Bitcoin did from Hut 8. Maybe you see more folks just spin off their Bitcoin mining assets or their ASICs over to ABTC or something like that. But I think in 24 months, there will be the number of former Bitcoin miners that are now just in sort of like the data center industry will be greater than one. And I think the question is just how much greater than one is my rant.
I agree with everything you said there, Drew. I think
very kind of
another factor limiting M&A in the space is that Bitcoin mining is a rare industry where it actually would behoove you for your competitors to go bankrupt, and you would just be happier for their hash rate to be offline, as opposed to other industries where if you're a shopping mall, you're not directly opposed to another shopping mall being there necessarily. Some factors of it are good, some are bad. But in mining, the other thing is, if a site's going bankrupt, if a company's going bankrupt, they're probably going bankrupt for a reason, and thus not that desirable a target for M&A just on the outright of, oh, they're going bankrupt. At a certain point, the only thing that would be valuable would be their machines. The machines, as we all know, drop in value 90%. So I think for a lot of firms, when you look at M&A within this industry and you look at capital, there are plenty other good uses of capital outside of buying an ASIC, right? And even with some of the miners on the middle market, they didn't realize they weren't calling themselves treasury companies, but they were often choosing to purchase Bitcoin as opposed to build. I think, and right now, I think the miners are in a precarious spot of, hey, are we going to buy new ASICs here, all this? And it feels like a bit of wait and see to me.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I haven't been following whether any of these new treasury codes have actually bought Bitcoin yet. But I feel like there's another key point where you have the HPC, you have the Bitcoin miners, you have this new temptation for HPC, you have this new temptation for treasury companies. I mean, yeah, the way Fred Thiel and Mara talk about it, or at least they talked about it as of the Bitcoin conference, was Bitcoin mining is just a way for them to accumulate more Bitcoin and kind of pivoting or positioning themselves more so as like a treasury company. Now, I'll let the discerning audience member decide whether or not for themselves that makes sense. But we kind of are at a point where this one thing that we were all, we got groups on Twitter talking about, it was all the same thing, and now it might not all be the same thing anymore.
I've got a question about M&A. Why aren't we seeing anything vertical? Why isn't Maro buying Bitmain and just calling it?
I don't know if Mara can buy Bitmain. No, Mara probably could.
And then the next question is, follow on from that, is the Zeta or the Yeta or whatever we're getting to, isn't that just a function of how many machines are sold and we can kind of predict it and it's linear?
So it's a great point. If I were going to model it, that's what I would do. I would say how much hash rate's been going online every month. And you could even think about it as like months where Bitcoin price goes up, months where Bitcoin price goes down. The reality is just hash rate keeps getting plugged in, even if Bitcoin chops sideways. I think that's exactly what you would want to do. The hard part is people don't really know how many machines Bitmain's producing. Riot? Oh no,
Buy Bitmain, and then you'd know
by
exactly.
Bitmain. Yeah. So by Bitmain or MicroBT. Now I think with BitDeer, you might be able to start playing that game a little bit better. And I think BitDeer, to your point, why doesn't someone try to like buy the ASIC? I think that's the smartest part of the value chain to own in a way if you're a Bitcoin miner. And years ago, there was this guy. What was his name? Steve Mosher. He worked at Canaan in like 2016, and he's the one who invented this idea or created this idea of the vertically integrated Bitcoin miner, where you produce the ASICs, you own the power infrastructure, you plug them in, you mine the Bitcoin, you offer financial services on top of it, and you're like a bank, bank to sort of foundry. You're like fully vertically integrated. Now, no one's really done that yet. I think probably Bitmain or BitDeer are the two who kind of most likely done this. And I think owning the ASIC is really valuable because, like, one could say the reason why Bitcoin mining economics can be so shit is because so much of the value is captured when the ASIC manufacturer prices the machine not based on cost plus, but based on what's the expected return if you plug in this machine. Like, I think the one heuristic used to be it's 200 days revenue is how you price it. I'm not sure if it still is, but I think if you kind of are thinking about things from that standpoint, Bitmain could be like making a machine for $5 per terahash, and then they can just like, oh, if the market rips, we'll sell it at $100 a terahash, and I think that Bitmain probably captures much of the value of Bitcoin mining from that right there, and that's why you're sort of a retail punter, and you get your face ripped off. It's because you're buying a machine at $100 a T, and then the economics immediately change for the worse. But I think you're asking all the right questions. I don't know if anyone's big enough to buy Bitmain. I don't know if MicroBT would ever sell themselves to a miner because MicroBT cares about sort of like I think MicroBT really cares about sort of its sort of ethical position in the industry. It's unclear whether Block's actually making meaningful amounts of ASICs to actually have miners plug them in. And that basically leaves BitDeer as the other one. I know there have been a few other new upstarts like Oridine and all this stuff, but I don't know if they're actually making stuff at scale.